What's up YouTube? It's been a while. Over the past 11 months since I last posted a video, a lot has changed with the car that you see behind me. And also a lot has changed with me and with racing, and I'm going to try to go over a lot of that in this video and also in future videos. So what's the biggest thing that's changed over the last 11 months for the car? Would be the turbo sitting in the engine bay. I have turbocharged the car, obviously. The turbo that I went with is the G25550. The kit that I went with is the JDL equal length turbo kit. There's also a couple of extra options. I have like an upgraded Garrett intercooler, stuff like that. But overall, the car is making about 300 wheel horsepower on the map that I'm going to be using for the track. So let's bring you guys over to the engine bay and we'll talk a little bit more about the turbo. So over the last 11 months, this engine bay has gone from completely stock to what you see here, which is pretty changed. So obviously right here, we have the G25550 turbo. We have Subaru wrinkle red intercooler piping and everything. Here is the upgraded intercooler itself, as well as a Veris air oil separator. The entire hot side of the turbo and the turbo itself is heat wrapped, along with some heat wrapping over the oil pipes and coolant pipes. I have the Delicious Tuning Flex Fuel Kit, so I can run E85 or 91 depending on whatever I want. And right over here is the Delicious Tuning Boost Controller. So I currently have 3 maps for the car. One is an 8 PSI map, one is an 11 PSI map, and one's a 13 PSI map. I haven't dynoed the car yet, so I don't know what power each one is making, but I estimate that the 11 PSI one is making about 300 horsepower to the wheels, which is what I'll be using on the track. Stepping away from the engine bay, I now have the Marsh Powerhouse Fab, or now they're called Marsh Composites, front splitter. And then on top of that, I have the Seabon TA style front lip. The reason I have the front lip and the splitter is because when I just had the splitter, there was a bit of a gap in between the splitter and the front bumper. And it was a point that could create drag. And also there was air traveling through here that could be traveling up into the cooling of the car. So I put this front lip on it so that the air would kind of travel more linearly into the intercooler, and then into the intake is in here, and the oil cooler, which is on the other side. One other thing I did that you can kind of see right here is the ducting that I put onto the car. So it's made of aluminum, and I reinforced it to a bunch of points throughout here. I just made it myself, and so far it's been pretty cool. I haven't taken it to the track yet since I did that, so I don't know what the actual results are as far as cooling, but that and an oil cooler fan have been added since the last time I tracked the car, so we should be okay. The track temperatures that I've been seeing are 240 degrees consistently, but I'm trying to get it down to about 230. Now, one thing you might be asking is, where are my wheels? My Apex ARC 8s are currently sitting over here in another garage with a fresh set of RE71Rs. I added 2 more wheels so that I can have an extra set in case one pops when I go to the track. That way I can just throw 2 wheels on and call it a day, and I don't have to worry about getting it patched that day. But the wheels are looking good. Can't wait to see them back on the car. The reason that my wheels aren't on the car right now is because I'm actually getting the coilovers rebuilt. So you can see there are no coilovers on the car. I'm getting them rebuilt so that next time I go to the track they'll feel good as new. Stepping back, I don't think you guys have seen this. This is the Voltex Type 2 wing, just to create more downforce, and I also have the Marsh Composites trunk to make sure that the trunk doesn't bend with all the downforce. That may sound like an exaggeration, but actually the aluminum trunks on the FRS have been known to bend with the amount of downforce that this wing and other wings make. So I've also added the Valenti taillights just because they look cool. No real purpose there. Coming to the interior, I have gotten the Sparco Ergo seat, and my driver's seat, which was the Sparco Evo, has been moved to the passenger seat. So now the passenger also has a good seat and harness, and also the passenger seat is now a racing seat, which means it's lighter than the normal stock OEM seat. I've also added a lightweight battery with a bracket that I made on my own, because buying a bracket for like $50 is extremely overpriced and I don't see a point to it. So lightweight battery. But that's pretty much it for what's changed with the car over the last year. Obviously I have more power, and now more power justifies the aero as well as the big brake kit and everything. Because since the first day that I've had this car, I've been building it for the turbo. So I added the big brakes a while ago, I added the aero a while ago, I added wheels that are 9-inch wide a while ago, so that when I turboed the car, the rest of it would all be ready with the modifications to make sure that it's good on the track and reliable. So obviously a lot has changed for the car over the last year, but because of that, I'm really sad to say that it hasn't seen a lot of track time. The car actually has only seen 1 track day between February and now when I'm filming this, which is August. So 1 track day in 6 months. And the reason for that is because Obviously with the turbo came a lot of issues with the installing it and with making sure it's all working properly. I mentioned earlier that the car is stalling. Since the first time that I took out the car, one issue that the car's had is when I'm driving and I put in the clutch and I let the RPMs fall to idle, it falls below what I think would be normal idle and then just dies. Sometimes it saves it and goes back to normal idle, but a lot of the time it dies. So when I put in the clutch, I have to kind of rev it a little bit to keep it running. And it's an issue that we think we found in the tune. The tune wasn't calibrated properly for when it was in low RPMs, meaning idle, and it would cause it to stall. So we're still working out that issue, but we think we found the solution to it. Sadly, because the car has been on jacks for about a week, rebuilding the coilovers, I haven't had the chance to test if we fixed the issue, but obviously there's going to be issues with installing a turbo on any car that came naturally aspirated. Another issue that I ran into was one that started to develop during the one track day that I went to. What would happen is when I was accelerating, especially in fourth gear for some reason, is it started to get into high RPMs, I would kind of notice that it would be accelerating, but then it would kind of cut power for just a second, and ever so slowly, just like cutting power and then on throttle, cutting power a little bit, then on throttle, and it would just kind of go dut, 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 like of cutting power. And then it progressively got worse. It got to the point where I would drive the car, and when I got to over 4,000 RPMs, it would just completely cut throttle and then go back on throttle and then cut throttle and then go back on throttle. You could hear the blow-off valve opening when it would cut throttle, like it was a significant cut on throttle. And then the car would just completely lose throttle. I would get two check engine lights that were throttle position sensors, and it just would lose all throttle and would hold at like 2,500 RPM, and the throttle wouldn't do anything until I restarted the car twice. The solution for that issue ended up being something on my end. There's a pipe that connects the wastegate to the turbo, and I put it too close to the fans and it caused a little hole in there, which means that the pressure in between the wastegate and the turbo wasn't accurate, and it would actually cause the car to go from what it's set to be, which is 10 psi, to almost 20 psi, which is, you're gonna blow your motor with a stock motor territory. So I found that. And I also resolved the throttle position sensor code, because what that actually was is my tuner programmed a failsafe that if the car got too high in boost, it would cut throttle so that you would save your engine. And that's what that was. That it was actually my tuner saving my engine for me. So note to people out there, make sure you guys get a good tuner. Now the final issue that I've had during the whole installation of the turbo and everything is having to do with the Verus air oil separator that I mentioned earlier. Obviously I'm a fan of Verus, I think they're a very good company, but there was one issue with the air oil separator that I ran into that's actually been seen before by another person that I know about. When you hook up the air oil separator to the intake of the car, because the air oil separator is pretty much run off of, it has to have suction created in order to pull the air/oil through the system and separate the two. So sometimes they recommend you attach the part that needs to have suction onto the intake, because obviously your intake is pulling in air. But the turbo would pull in so much air that it caused the car to, or it caused the air oil separator to let oil go directly into the intake. It would go through the air oil separator and not get caught, and then send oil directly into the intake of the car, which caused oil to get all through my intercooler and then directly into the engine. And that happened when I was at the track day, and I noticed every time I would start the car there would be a poof of smoke from the engine bay. And then I also, where I noticed that this was an issue was I looked at the blow-off valve, and around the blow-off valve was oil. And so I realized that there was oil getting into the intake system, and that was an issue. So I obviously rerouted the air oil separator, completely solved that issue, cleaned the intercooler, cleaned all the intercooler piping. Now that issue is solved. So basically where we are now is we're still dealing with that stalling issue, but I would be 100% willing to track the car as it is. Even with that stalling issue, it's not going to be an issue on the track, because when you're on the track, you're always in high RPMs. You don't ever let it die, and even when it does die, you just start it and keep going. So I'm fine with tracking the car how it is. The reason that I haven't is because it's summer in California, and summer in California at the tracks, Buttonwillow, Willow Springs, and Fontana are all anywhere from 100 to 110 degrees, which is not only painful for me to be in, like I just hate being in that heat, but also it's not very good for your car, and I really don't want to blow the engine just yet. So I'm waiting for the temperatures to cool down. I should be racing either by the end of this month or next month. And when I go to those track days, I'll try to do some filming, and I'll try to post something on my channel. So I'll try to kind of post videos and keep you guys updated with how the track stuff is going, because I think that's the stuff that you guys care about the most, and I think it's the coolest stuff about this car is when it actually sees the track, which is what it was built for. So that's going to do it for this video, just a quick recap of what's happened over the last 11 months to get you guys up to speed. Hopefully I'll try to start posting again, like I said, especially to do with track stuff. Now you guys kind of have an idea of where the car is. so you guys will know what's going on with the track stuff. So make sure you guys subscribe, make sure you guys like this video. If you guys want to see anything else other than track stuff, comment below and I'll try to make it happen. But other than that, yeah, have a good day, everyone. So strong.